Hello, and welcome to Digital Decode with Carla. My name is Laura Walubengo, and I'm your host for this podcast, where we'll be diving into anything that has to do with technology in Africa. And the aim of this podcast is for us to be able to decode anything that's happening digitally on the continent. As you know, the future of this continent is steeped in technology, and so you better be listening. What we're trying to do here is make sure that you're enlightened and inspired. Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Digital Decode with Carla. And this is a special series that we're running with Innovate Kenya Tech Summit 2025. And before I mess things up a little bit here, I want to introduce a very special guest. He is the one who is the brains behind this very summit, and his name is Victor Otieno. Hello, Victor. How are you?
Very well.
Please introduce yourself and tell us all about the summit.
So my name is Victor Otieno. I'm the managing director at Viffa Consult. Our focus is basically research that supports SMEs as well as startups. Evidence that can be used for policy conversations, evidence that can allow for different entrepreneur support organizations, development partners to be able to design programs that are localized to the Kenyan ecosystem. I think Innovate Kenya is part of the broader conversations that we've had over the last number of years. And the idea is to be able to really support Kenyan entrepreneurs, Kenyan startups in a manner that they can be able to see value. So, there's talk about, Kenya being the Silicon Savannah with a connotation of adopting models that maybe are not fit for purpose within the African context. So, a lot of conversations around VC, a lot of conversation around angel investors, etc. So the idea is just for us to be able to see how we can be able to create value and really support, our local entrepreneurs who are doing amazing stuff, doing a number of innovations across the different sectors. So that's really at the heart of the summit. And of course, we are bringing different stakeholders around the same just to ensure that Kenyan startups get the real support that they need.
Thanks a lot. So you're saying that you're the managing director of Viffa Consult. What does Viffa stand for?
It's a funny story. I mean, we started off almost a decade ago, and by then we were a number of people who, from employment, and we were like, we need to be able to do something to support entrepreneurs in Kenya and in Africa. So we started off around 7 directors, and of course, we tried to get an acronym that would fit
all the names.
all the names. We didn't succeed at that, but then that's the story around Viffa. It's not.
So are you still 7?
No, of course, business is hard in Kenya. I mean, it's very tough. So, as we moved along, a number of them left. So we just remained around 3 of us.
It's funny that you say business is hard in Kenya, but the main purpose that you've come together is to support entrepreneurs. Why entrepreneurs per se?
I think my theory of change, or my belief, has always been that the only way in which we can be able to develop Kenya as a country is if we're able to do business, if we're able to create value, and of course, when you create value, you get paid for it. That's the only tool that we have that can allow for us to be able to support young people. Yes, we grew up being told that, work hard so that you can go work for government. If you look at statistics, public sector can only employ so much. Private sector, in terms of big corporates, can also employ so much. So we need to be able to look for other avenues that would allow for entrepreneurs to get an opportunity to make a living, to make an income, or to be economically empowered. So I think that's the push that I've always had over the last decade or so, just seeing how we can be able to support this kind of people to do something.
Yeah, but still, I mean, why the entrepreneur? There's so many ways that you can support, I guess. But do you have a specific specific sensitivity towards what an entrepreneur represents?
I think, of course, there are many ways to support entrepreneurs. You can provide financing, you can train, you can be able to do a number of stuff. But I think at the core of it is the environment in which we operate in. So you can be a great entrepreneur, you can do great business, but if the regulatory or the business climate is not good, you can't grow. I mean, you can't even export potatoes to Tanzania if things are bad. So I think early on I saw that if there is a great need for us to really focus on the environment and engage different stakeholders to ensure that that environment works. Because if it works, it means that everyone is able to thrive, not just one or two entrepreneurs, but everyone is able to thrive. So I think that's where I always see our support going, or even personally, the support that I give in the ecosystem is going towards creating an enabling environment or having conversations that allow for the environment or the space for business to be enabling.
So how are you, as Victor Otieno, uniquely placed to create this environment?
I think it boils down to passion. Yeah. So I mean, so everyone, you pick what I think you're good at. Number one is early on, just even from primary school, I was a very analytical kid. And even up to now, I'm very analytical. I think different in terms of solutions. So of course, I can't dig. I can't motivate. I'm not a motivational speaker, but I can be able to analyze. I can be able to think through ideas. I can be able to see solutions in abstract nature. And I think that's the uniqueness that I bring. Of course, then I'm able to articulate some of the ideas in a manner that is not too much English. So whenever we talk to policy players, whether they're members of county assemblies or member of parliament, a lot of them, they're not specialized ideally on certain areas. So being able to speak that language also, I think, is something that it gives me a competitive edge. I can be able to pick a very complex idea and just break it down in a manner that they're able to understand based on their own KPIs. So I think that's really what has given me that advantage of sorts within this space.
Okay. So if you look at the challenges that entrepreneurs are facing and you're looking at the environment that you want to create, why is a summit the answer to that?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that you see in this ecosystem is a lack of collaboration. So we have a lot of people doing great stuff. I mean, we have innovators who are coming up with nice ideas. We have development partners who have money and don't know how to, or they're spending it in a manner that is not optimal. They're not collaborating with people who have done it and probably lack resources. We have government that is looking for solutions, but they don't know how. You go to county governments, you go to whichever sector, health sector, agricultural sector. A lot of them are implementing programs in the traditional sense. So we hear of innovation, but then where is this innovation? Because also on the other side, in private sector, the sector is not as organized. So we thought of, why can't we create a platform that allows for people to collaborate based on your strengths, based on your weaknesses, and of course, get opportunities. So, for example, Ministry of Agriculture or county government in Mashinani or whatever, why can't they have a conversations with an innovator who's specialized in that field? So in agriculture, we have a number of innovations that are there. Earth observation for agriculture. We have AI, we have blockchain, a number of innovations that can be deployed within agriculture. But then if you look at the structure of government, you don't get an opportunity to interact, because the only way government interacts with you, at least in terms of transaction, is guided by the PFM Act. So this is the Public Finance Management Act. So if they need a service, they will do a public tender. Someone wins. Sometimes it's not the innovator, it's someone with cash. So then, yes, they are able to get a solution, but they're not getting the most of the best solution for that matter. So again, this is a platform that allows for that type of conversation to happen. We see also from the corporate side, if you look at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, we see a drought in terms of listing. We see very little innovation going through. We always joke, and I think you might know of this joke of Omo with Powerform. So it's not, it's just an improved, there's nothing incrementally or significantly innovative about the product, but is what we're calling incremental innovation.
They've just added the plus.
So the plus, or they can change the packaging, but ultimately it's the same thing. So even if you look at corporate Kenya, there's not very deep innovation that is taking place. If you look at Europe, if you look at US, there's a lot of collaboration between startups as well as with corporates. And you can see acquisition, you can see a lot of things happening there. But we don't see that in Kenya. So again, the platform allows for that type of collaboration to happen between startups as well as corporates. So those are the two types of collaborations that we are looking out for: startup government collaboration, as well as startup corporate collaboration.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, I guess those are the three you've mentioned. You've mentioned the startups, you've mentioned the government, and you've mentioned also corporates. But I guess there's also a way or an avenue for even startups to come together. Because it's funny that you mentioned Omo with Powerform, but I also thought of a friend of mine works in the motoring industry. And she was telling me that the only difference between Model A and Model B of, let's say, a Toyota Land Cruiser, engine is usually the same.
Yes,
it's just the body that changes. So even if you look at it in terms of innovation, most innovation is never drastic. There's always little bits of progress that get to that point. So if you have these three particular sectors, for lack of a better word, coming together to have this conversation, who else are you going to invite into that room? Who else needs to be a witness, I guess, to what's happening?
I think there's something what we call in business. There's something we call either triple helix or quadruple helix. So for business or for entrepreneurship to thrive, there are a number of players that need to come. We have government, we have private sector, we have the entrepreneurs themselves, we have academia or people who are in the knowledge business, as well as the entrepreneur. So other than just a private sector, government, etc., we are also looking at development partners. Mm-hmm. So you see a lot of development agencies also deploying programs, whether the economic empowerment programs, startup support programs. Some of them don't have the capacity or know-how to support innovation. They have the money, but sometimes they don't have the know-how to deploy. So again, if they're able to see this type of conversations happening, they can be able to deploy capital. So I think those are the people we are also targeting. If you look at a lot of development partners, they are moving digital fast. So they are saying part of the programs we want to deploy is adopt innovation or technology. I'll give you an example. Bible Society of Kenya does Bible translation, and they interact a lot with a lot of high schools. One of the things, as I was having a conversation with them as a partner, is that they were saying that they have an app that allows for a normal teacher to be able to give counseling to a student. Remember, there's a lot of high school, with adolescents, there's a lot of, back and forth, bad behavior, etc. So there's a great need for counseling. And you don't have enough money or resources of manpower to get a specialist counselor. So they've developed this app that allows for, of course, through a partner, for a normal teacher to be able to counsel a child using the app. So there is a structure around it. So you can see, ideally, they're not in innovation, but the situation calls for them to be innovative. And of course, then they're able to get a partner who can be able to do exactly that. So you can see that type of collaboration you have to create a platform that allows for more of this type of collaboration to happen. And of course, it benefits everyone. The startup gets their funding, the development partner gets a solution, and of course, the end user also gets something that is worthwhile.
Yeah, I guess this sort of collaboration or this coming together, it's mostly also just for a knowledge base, so that you know what exactly is happening. So you mentioned development partners, and in my head, I'm thinking of the big donor names that we know. But there's a lot of need right now to have a lot of Africans coming up, even as individuals, as development partners. How do you get to bridge that disconnect where I can sit somewhere, I might have maybe $2,000 to invest, but I don't look at myself as a development partner? How do you entice me to get onto the table?
Part of the activities that we are doing, actually, of course, number one is just creating a database of different innovators, startups across board. But what we're also doing is we're also creating a database of investors. So, and when we talk about investors, we're not looking at, global north type of investors, institutional VCs, and the likes. We're actually looking for your typical normal Kenyan. Either you are in a chama group and you have some cash, or you are a C-suite manager who has some cash and you want to do good. So normally you don't see yourself as an investor or a development partner. But if you look at the way the Kenyan psyche is, whenever there is a need, money always finds
Yeah.
itself coming. So if it's a burial or it's a wedding, money comes. So, but again, there has to be a lot of education around the same. So the startup ecosystem and the way you invest in startups is very different from buying land. Land, your return on investment is it's very clear. You understand that. But a lot of us outside of the ecosystem don't know that, and they are very apprehensive. Gen Zs, we can't give you money. I mean, you'll eat the money and go buy an iPhone. But there has to be some level of education to enable them see the value and the thing that they can be able to make money out of it. So we're actually developing a database for that. And part of the conversation is for them to come see, and if they're able to see a corporate taking over or collaborating with a startup, and the corporate has confidence in them, then of course that gives the startups the credibility for them to be able to engage with an individual. A lot of us are very risk averse. I mean, we don't have too much cash. So you want to ensure that where you are putting the money, the risk is not as high. So, of course, maybe the collaboration between startups and government, startups and corporate can then open their eyes to see, there's an opportunity here. Possibly we can be able to talk and see how we can be able to put money to be able to support whatever innovations that is out there.
I guess even if you talk about risk, even if you are taking the risk, it has to be calculated to a certain extent. Okay, so tell me a bit more about the actual summit. When is it going to happen? How long is it going to be for? What are some of the topics that you're hoping to cover?
So the summit is between 10th to 14th of March 2025. So the topics are designed based on government national priorities. So if you look at Kenya has the long-term blueprint, Vision 2030, which is broken down into medium-term plans. So we have done medium-term plan 1, 2, 3. Currently, we are doing MTP4, which is now BETA, the Bottom-up Economic Transformation Agenda. So there are certain priorities that the government has set in place, and they have certain pillars that they have said we want to focus on. They've said they want to focus on certain value chains, in agriculture, tea, cotton, etc. So what we've done is we've been able to, the question we're asking ourselves is, what type of innovation can be able to solve a problem in a certain sector based on the Vision 20, MTP4 and based on a certain ministry? So the topics are around 19, which are aligned to all ministries. So for instance, in agriculture, the question is, what types of technologies exist that can be able to support agricultural productivity in Kenya? You can use Earth observation data, you can use AI, you can use blockchain. So a number of technologies within agriculture. So people can come and say, hey, as we are doing this in agriculture, the ministry, either the national government or county, can say, by the way, I think this can work for us. A different company or a corporate also can say, hey, this is a technology that I think we can be able to adopt. So that's, you can see now the question is, what can technology do for us? It's not just raising the flag and romanticizing technology. We do blockchain. We are cool. I mean, we need solutions.
We're clever.
We're clever. I mean, we need practical solutions saying this type of technology has been deployed or has been piloted, and it can be deployed effectively in government. The question is then, how do we engage? And that's the idea of the summit. So that once we agree that we need to collaborate, then the question after the summit is then, how do we ensure that this collaboration works? And of course, we can be able to follow through that, communicate that. And of course, you can see we are doing a podcast, and we hope that then we can be able to do more of this type of communication to educate the type of collaborations that are happening. And of course, come back to the next year on a summit and say, we agree to collaborate. This is what we've done. These are the challenges. These are the successes.
So, I mean, one of the challenges that you have mentioned quite clearly is just the lack of collaboration and the lack of people being in the same room when they're trying to make a change in the country, on the continent. And you've also mentioned, I guess, the importance of whatever innovation that's coming through, follow a particular path that is laid down by the government. Just in your experience, considering you've been working with entrepreneurs for such a long time, how can you get them to that level where the government will be ready to actually sit down and listen? Because I don't think they're short of proposals. So how do you get them to that next step where you're like, okay, if you present in a certain way, or if you find yourself in a certain situation, then you'll have done, I think, 30% of the work.
So I think the current government has indicated, of course, through rhetoric as well as documentation, that it wants to be a digital-first government. It wants to be able to digitize a lot of the operations that they have across national as well as county government. And of course, they also want to be able to create economic opportunities for young people. And a good example is the housing project, where they're saying we'll build houses and we'll have young people come and get employed or get economic opportunities. So the same can be done for technology or digitization. You can be able to say through affirmative action that we want to be able to digitize, but then we want to use young people to digitize the government. Then you have a problem with PFM, meaning that for government to be able to get you to engage is they have to do a public tender. So what are the chances of you as a young person getting that opportunity? It's next to impossible. I mean, we have big dinosaurs who are ready to take up those opportunities. So then it means that then let's have a conversation that allows for that collaboration to happen. There is an opportunity of affirmative action, like the AGPO, where you say 30% goes to women and youth and people with disabilities. But even that does not cover innovation. It covers, firewood, supply papers, printing papers, etc. We are not getting real value. Or young people, at least from a startup perspective, can't use that as a vehicle. And then we hope then the conversation we are going to have is then, if we want to digitize and we want to bring young people, then how do we collaborate? Does it require that we create another affirmative action of sorts to ensure that we are able to get technology into government using local people? And I mean, Kenyan entrepreneurs have been tried and tested on innovation. I mean, there are a lot of innovations that are out there. It's only that maybe they don't get to see, get an opportunity to be seen. But if you look at a good indication of the maturity is look at Global Innovation Index, look at Startup Ecosystem Index. Kenya ranks very well. If you look at venture capital also coming into the continent, recently we saw that Kenyan startups attracted around 82 billion shillings. If you look big tech, the number of your Microsoft, your AWSs, all setting up shop in Kenya. They're not here for church services. They're here to get talent. They're here to get to test products. So I mean, the talent is there, the ingenuity is there. We just need to be able to direct that for them to be able to get economic opportunities, and that's what we really want to really push for.
I think as you were talking, one of the things that came to my mind is, how do you get entrepreneurs who are coming up with some very clever solutions and innovations to think big? Because I think that's probably what makes the difference between you looking at Facebook as something you use in college and Facebook as something you use globally.
I think we also have a culture issue in Kenya around entrepreneurship. I mean, I'm a good example. When I got appointed as a chief officer at Nairobi County, leading digital economy and startups, that's the first time my mom called me saying I'm a serious person. Now you've gotten the job.
You stop playing with the internet.
my prayers have been answered. So I mean, so we still have a big issue around entrepreneurship, and even the guys who enter into entrepreneurship, they take it as either I've failed to secure employment, or I'm just doing it as I wait for serious job to come through. So I think we have a big issue there. So you see a lot of entrepreneurs in Kenya invest in wholesale retail, meaning that I just do a business, buying, selling. It's very easy to get in or get out as I wait for something. So you don't see people really investing themselves, their time to be able to build a great product. Partly, I think, it's a question of culture. But also partly is also of the environment. The environment is extremely difficult to navigate. Just raising, even getting a loan, if you don't have a payslip, is next to impossible. Accessing market and stuff. So there are a lot of challenges that really are a disincentive for someone to really say, I want to do manufacturing, or I want to do agriculture. I'll give you an example. There's a tax called cess. Cess is a tax that is charged when you move agricultural products from one county to the next. So, for example, you have Laura has a great idea of moving stuff from potatoes from Kisumu to Mombasa. You have to pay cess for every border you cross. By the time you reach Mombasa, the cost of the tax is almost 100%. So you can see, even if you wanted to do something, that particular piece of legislation or revenue from counties already is a disincentive. And we have a number. Of course, fuel is almost half of, taxes is the cost of taxes on fuel is almost half. If you're importing a car, the taxes are almost half.
Wow. Yeah.
So these things pile up. So if you want cabs, you want this license, they pile up. So by the time you are staring at, your product, I mean, you've outpriced yourself out.
You might as well eat your own potatoes.
We've not had electricity stuff. So you also need to look at it from both sides of the coin. So government wants to raise revenue, and they are in a tight space to raise revenue. But we don't have to be fighting around this. I think we can be able to negotiate. We can be able to have a conversation of saying, yes, we understand that we need on-source revenue, but then can we harmonize at the very least? For example, for cess, you don't have to pay for every county. Why is it possible for us to be able to pay once, even if it's an expensive, whatever, because then you're able to avoid corruptions and stuff, and maybe even automate it, so that you get your revenue, but I'm also able to do business. So I think we lack enough spaces for this type of conversation that is not confrontational, where, a CS or a PS stands up and they are like, hey, I hate you from the get-go. So we want to be able to have sober conversations that is able to measure the needs of the entrepreneur, but also the needs of government in terms of, raising revenue for them to be able to run government. So I think this is actually a great platform for that type of sober conversation to happen.
Okay. So I have two questions. One, if you look at, you've mentioned the different counties and how when you're navigating agricultural produce from one point to another, you need to pay for the cess. Now, one of the major things that happened in the past number of years is devolution. And it just means that youth who don't have to have the rural-urban migration sit in their county and decide, okay, this is the need that I see. And the need is valid. And so based on that need, this is what I can do. So if you're coming up with this tech summit and you want to create it as a place of collaboration, how will you reach the people in the different counties, even as far as Lodwar? I think I saw something in the news yesterday or a couple of days ago about women in Marsabit actually coming together and deciding that they're going to pool their resources. And if a woman needs a loan, they'll be able to provide that loan so that instead of getting, 900 shillings, they can give you maybe up to 900,000 shillings. So how do you reach people mashinani?
That's a great question. And I think it's something that we, as we're crafting this platform, we thought about. So it's not that we want to just do a single event and disappear. So a hit and run of sorts. We want to be able to have continuous conversations. In Kenya, where do you see a summit that is doing a podcast? Where do you see a summit that is doing a Twitter space? And it's not to raise revenue, but just to ensure that we're able to have a decent conversation. So that's number one. So of course, we can be able to share the conversations we are having, and the different innovators that are coming on board. I mean, we are getting across board, not only across the counties, but even across the border. We are having conversations with Tanzania Startup Association as peers.
Nice.
Can we be able to even get startups who, for example, in mining in Tanzania, and mining is not too big in Kenya. Can we be able to pick lessons from there? Hopefully, even after the summit, we can be able to have town hall sessions. So where we can, go down to Kisumu, go down to Uasin Gishu, Nakuru, etc., and start having the same conversations at the grassroots. So we can pick a topic, whether it's, disability, bring the county government, and let's talk. So guys with disability, guys who are doing assistive technology, guys from county and development partners, and then have a conversation and see what type of collaboration can come out of it. So it's not just the summit as a summit, but summit with programs, with activities that allows for us to be able to decentralize and have those conversations mashinani.
I think also just based on your own history and the things that you've been involved in and the knowledge that you have just within the digital space, I can imagine the word tech and the words innovation is intimidating enough. So how, I mean, this is just I'd love to pick your brain on this, but how do you circumnavigate those words? Because once you come to Bungoma and you're telling me you're doing something tech or innovation related, I might be like, you know what? I've seen my parents doing sugarcane. I don't know if I'm at that level yet.
Yeah.
So what are some of the misconceptions, or how do you go about that conversation?
I think we are used to tech being ICT correlated. So there is a lot of people, when they hear tech, they assume it's ICT in the sense of a computer. I don't have a computer. I'm not conversant with that. I think for us, the focus is on innovation, meaning that you can be able to look at a process and do something different, either increase efficiency or something. It could be that you deploy technology in the sense of ICT, or it could be that you are deploying technology otherwise. It doesn't have to be ICT related. It could be device, someone who is blind getting something that, or even improving the wheelchair. I mean, you don't have to do such astronomical things. For instance, around disability, how do we reduce cost of a wheelchair so that it's affordable? How do you make it accessible? I mean, it could be that you're putting a shock absorber on a wheelchair because where it's manufactured, it's very good surface. You come to Kenya, you're off-road on the roads. So it could be as simple as that. It could be that you're improving on a JICO to some degree. But again, it has to be focused. So the question is what type of technology is able to address a certain issue? Think about M-Pesa. A lot of us don't know the mechanics around M-Pesa. But we know if I dial, money will move from point A to point B. So it's a technology, but we are not talking about the technology itself. We are talking about it as a solution. So that's the thing. So whenever we are talking to different stakeholders, we are talking to different partners, the question is either, do you have a challenge in your sector? Can you come articulate the challenge? If it's people, for example, with disability, they can come and say, in this space, these are the challenges we see. We hear of technology, but we don't see it, or if we see it, it's expensive. So that is very good information that another partner can say, okay, I didn't know that it is expensive. What do I need to do to make sure it is
cheaper?
It is affordable. So that type of conversation is not the tech itself, but is people with solutions and people with challenges, and they're meeting on a platform and agreeing to work together to improve and to create value for each other. It's as simple as that. So even for government, a lot of government agencies are like, this is a Ministry of ICT conversation. It's not. I mean, if you go to all departments, all sectors across even counties, a lot of them are deploying technology. Maybe are not to some degree deploying technology. Maybe to some degree they are not. This is a good learning platform for them to come to discover what solutions are out there that can be able to really make their life easy when it comes to programs. Because when you do innovation, when you do technology, it's able to increase efficiency, you're able to reduce cost and stuff. And of course, that's a win-win for everyone.
Is this the first time you're having this summit?
Yeah, so this is the first time of this type of summit, but this is a follow-up of what we did with the same ecosystem when I was at Nairobi City County as a chief officer. So, I mean, the vision was the same. How do we bring innovation to county governments? And that's now what we are just doing and just scaling it up and saying, we want to be able to bring innovation to the whole of government. We want to be able to bring innovation to corporates who really would want to do a type of innovation. And of course, I've been in the ecosystem for such a long time. And these are conversations that we've had. I've personally supported a number of innovation summits across the country, and of course, even in the region.
Okay. So as we wind up, I guess two observations I've had just based on what you're saying. Mentioning M-Pesa to me, and the challenges that I guess we have culturally to innovation, it almost makes me think that maybe we look at ourselves as a support system, but we probably don't have the belief that I can make something as revolutionary as M-Pesa was. And I think that's something that would be quite interesting to speak to, because we're always looking at the technical stuff, the intellectual stuff, but there's also the mental aspect of things that I think is as important. So that just made me think a little bit there. But if you're looking for collaborations and if you're trying to solve a problem that governments have, as Victor Otieno and as somebody who's very passionate about this subject, quite obviously, how do you anticipate, or what do you want participants at the summit to come away from it knowing?
I think I'm a very pragmatic person. What you want is action. Even as a participant, what you're coming to get something tangible. If you are startups are saying we don't need VCs. We need direct conversations with corporates. We need direct conversations with county government officials, so that we can see how we can pilot some of the solutions that we have. It's as simple as that. So probably that can either come as that's actually a commercial opportunity. If you're corporate, you're looking for tangible innovations that you can mainstream to your main product, or you can buy out as a solution. So it's very practical. So if you're a government official or you're a public officer, you're coming to look for partners that you can collaborate to ensure that we are able to deliver programs. So we don't want just a talk shop. We want practical solutions. And follow through to ensure that if you agreed that you're going to collaborate, we are able to follow through to ensure that that collaboration happens. It doesn't have to work out 100%, but then we can be able to pick those lessons and see then how do we improve and how do we ensure that any innovation, people are able to feel it. We are tired of speaking of M-Pesa for the last 20 years. That's not the only innovation we have. I mean, we need to be able to start talk about other types of innovation and how they actually practically helping people to go about their day. Think about Ubers and deliveries. What type of technology they're using? They're using GPS, but they don't think about it as GPS. They know that I'll open my phone, I can be able to move from here to there.
Yeah.
So that type of impact of, yes, we know that the innovation is there, technology is there, but the question here is, how does this affect my day-to-day living, and how do we ensure that those things are able to trickle down across many sectors?
Okay. I must say that you answer questions very well. You don't give me space to give you, a rejoinder. So, I mean, thank you very much. I think I'm quite interested to see the kind of people that are going to come to the summit and the kind of conversations that are going to be taking place there. And of course, all the time you go for these things, you really want to be part of the action that comes out of that.
Yeah.
So maybe I can just ask you to do a last minute pitch where you can invite people to come to the summit, and we can close the conversation there, because now I think all that's left is for us to go for the summit.
Yeah, so everyone is welcome, all different stakeholders, academia, government, both at national as well as counties, startups as well as corporates. You're all welcome to Innovate Kenya 2025, where we hope we can be able to get more collaborations going and having real innovation impacting the day-to-day lives of Kenyans. Karibuni sana.
No. Unfortunately, I've come up with a question. Just one second. Yeah. So there's a school of thought that this whole structure of the VC and how investments are done, the seed rounds, pre-seed. If people just want to have conversations and to just get investment, do you think that maybe it's ripe now for Kenya to just have a new model for financing for startups?
Yeah, it is true. If you look at the in sectors that are being invested on in terms of VC, a VC is in business. They are looking for a high return on investment as well as a very close payback period. You don't want your money staying for 10 years. You want to invest quickly, get back your cash, and reinvest elsewhere. So what that does is the VCs invest in very few sectors. So you'll find a lot of, yes, there's a lot of investment that is coming to Kenya, but how many sectors are they investing? It only focuses on fintech and a bit of energy. You rarely get health, other sectors, education, etc. So, but this it doesn't mean that we don't have solutions across the other sectors. Is that they are not ticking the box of patient capital and money that is affordable. So that means that we need to be able to look for other ways of financing startups. And the cheapest and the most affordable way of supporting any business is revenue. The moment I get commercial opportunities, I will not even raise money. I have enough profit. I've calculated my business model. It means I can be able to grow organically. So I think that's what is missing in the country. And it's not that we lack funding resources locally. There is a lot of money that is going to government securities. If you look at pension funds, a majority of the money that they put in either quoted equities or even government securities. So they have money. It's just we need to be able to prove to them that it's viable and profitable to invest in startups.
Okay. Thank you very much. As you've heard from Victor Otieno, you know all about the summit, and I'd like you to keep it logged to Digital Decode with Carla, because if you follow us on Spotify, on YouTube, on your favorite social media platform, you'll get to hear more conversations also with the partners and the participants who will be part of the summit that's happening in March. But for now, let me just say thank you, Victor. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to conversating with you again soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, cheers.